There exists a threshold beyond power itself, a place where strength becomes something else entirely, where the very concept of limitation dissolves into meaningless abstraction. In the vast architecture of existence, where cosmic entities reshape galaxies with idle thoughts and reality benders rewrite the laws of physics, as casually as mortals change their clothes, only a handful of beings have ever approached this threshold with full awareness of what crossing it would mean. Most who glimpse this boundary retreat. Some go mad. A precious few stand at the edge, feel the pull of infinite possibility, and make a choice that will echo across every dimension of existence. His name is Captain Atom, and from the moment of his violent rebirth, he was never meant to be just another hero in a cape. He was engineered to be a deterrent so absolute that wars would end before they began, a walking apocalypse wrapped in human skin, a living reminder that humanity could create gods when sufficiently desperate. The military brass, who authorized his creation, never imagined he would develop a conscience. They certainly never imagined he would develop ambitions that stretched beyond their control. Now, after years of service, after countless battles fought in shadows and in spotlight, after dying and being reborn more times than he can accurately count, Captain Atom stands on the precipice of his ultimate transformation. The multiversal tournament has stripped away every pretense, every comfortable lie he told himself about duty and sacrifice. What remains is pure, crystalline purpose, and the only thing standing between him and total domination of existence itself is a farm boy from Kansas who still believes in truth and justice. But to understand how two beings who once called each other ally came to this moment of cosmic reckoning, we must first understand what Nathaniel Atom truly is, what he was before the fire consumed him, and what emerged from the ashes wearing his face. The story begins in a small American town, the kind of place where dreams go to suffocate slowly. Nathaniel Atom grew up watching his father work himself into an early grave at the local factory, watched his mother's eyes grow dimmer with each passing year, watched his childhood friends settle into lives of quiet desperation one by one. The options available to a boy of his circumstances were limited. The choices were even fewer. College was a fantasy reserved for families with money. The trades offered stability, but promised nothing more than a slow march toward the same exhausted death his father had earned. So Nathaniel did what young men with no prospects and too much pride have done throughout history. He ran toward the sky and joined the Air Force. For the first time in his life, he felt like he belonged to something greater than himself. The discipline suited him. The structure gave his restless mind focus. He rose through the ranks with a determination that impressed his superiors and intimidated his peers. He married a woman who saw past his rough edges to the man he was trying to become. He built something that resembled happiness. But fate has never been known for playing fair with those who dare to hope. The crime he was accused of was heinous enough to destroy everything he had built. Treason, they called it, selling secrets to enemies of the state. The evidence was fabricated with professional precision, planted by men whose names he would never learn, whose motivations would remain forever obscured by layers of classification and bureaucratic obfuscation. In a single day, Nathaniel Atom lost his rank, his reputation, his marriage, and his freedom. He was offered a choice that was no choice at all. He could disappear into a military prison, forgotten and disgraced, or he could volunteer for something called Project Atom. The scientists who briefed him were careful to explain the theoretical possibilities without dwelling on the almost certain probability of his death. They needed a human subject for an experiment involving nuclear detonation and an alien metal called dilustal that had been recovered from a crashed spacecraft. The metal possessed properties that defied conventional physics. They believed it might bond with human tissue under sufficient energetic stress. They were gambling with his life on a hypothesis. Nathaniel understood this. He also understood that death in service to science was preferable to rotting in a cell for crimes he did not commit. The explosion was beyond anything human language can adequately describe. For a fraction of a second that stretched into subjective eternity, Nathaniel Atom experienced the heart of a nuclear reaction from the inside. Every cell in his body was simultaneously destroyed and recreated. The alien metal fused with his being at the quantum level, rewriting the fundamental code of his existence. The man who walked out of that blast crater was not Nathaniel Adam. Not entirely. The memories remained, the personality persisted, but something new had been added to the equation. Something vast and terrible and beautiful beyond human comprehension. Captain Adam had been born. His body is no longer bound by the laws of traditional physics. He exists in constant communion with the quantum field, that mysterious foundation upon which all reality is constructed. Energy flows through him like blood through mortal veins. Time bends around his consciousness like light around a massive star. Matter itself becomes malleable in his presence, subject to his will in ways that would make the greatest scientists weep with frustrated incomprehension. He does not merely punch holes through walls. He can erase those walls from existence, unweave the atomic bonds that hold them together, convince the universe that they never existed in the first place. He does not merely fly. He translates himself through space, existing simultaneously in multiple locations until he chooses which version of himself to collapse into permanence. The military brass who created him were terrified and thrilled in equal measure. They had produced a weapon beyond their wildest projections. A single soldier who could end conflicts through the mere threat of his presence. A deterrent so absolute that enemy nations would negotiate rather than risk his deployment. But weapons have a troubling tendency to develop their own agendas. Years passed. Captain Adam served with distinction, his conscience gradually reasserting itself over his conditioning. He joined the Justice League, fought alongside Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman against threats that would have crushed ordinary heroes. He tried to be more than the weapon he was created to be. Yet always, in the quiet moments between battles, he felt the pull of his true nature. The knowledge that he could reshape reality if he chose to. The understanding that moral restraint was the only thing separating him from godhood. When the multiversal tournament began, summoning champions from across existence to compete for power sufficient to defeat Darkseid himself, Captain Adam recognized it immediately for what it was. Not merely a competition, but a crucible. A test designed to push its participants past their breaking points. A machine for producing gods. He stepped forward without hesitation. He understood the stakes better than most. Darkseid represented an existential threat to all life, all freedom, all possibility. Defeating him required power that no current champion possessed. If the tournament could forge such power, then the tournament must proceed. What surprised everyone was not that Captain Adam entered the competition. What surprised them was how quickly and completely he abandoned his principles once the fighting began. Round after round, he dismantled opponents with brutal efficiency that bordered on artistry. His military training merged with his quantum abilities to create a combat style that was both elegant and utterly ruthless. He did not showboat. He did not hesitate. He identified weaknesses with cold precision and exploited them without mercy. When he faced Supergirl in the 4th round, the outcome was never truly in doubt. She was powerful, certainly, but power alone means nothing against an opponent who can manipulate the fundamental forces that power depends upon. He drained her solar radiation, weakened her connection to the yellow sun that fueled her abilities, and then he struck with force calibrated to end the fight permanently. He called it a tactical accident, a necessary sacrifice in pursuit of greater victory. Superman did not believe him. The confrontation that followed was not a debate between heroes about acceptable methods. It was something rawer and more primal. Two fundamentally different philosophies of existence colliding with the force of galaxies. Superman approached Captain Adam in the aftermath of Supergirl's defeat, his eyes blazing with a fury that few had ever witnessed from the Man of Steel. His cape was torn, his uniform scorched from his own recent battles, but his bearing remained that of a king confronting a subject who had betrayed the crown. Captain Adam met his gaze without flinching. He had expected this confrontation. In some ways, he had been waiting for it his entire career. The accusations came hot and fast. Superman spoke of lines that should never be crossed, of principles that defined what it meant to be a hero, of the sacred duty to protect even in the midst of combat. He spoke of Supergirl not as a casualty of war, but as family, as a young woman who had placed her trust in her comrades only to be struck down by one of them. Captain Atom let him speak, and then, with a cold clarity that had defined his existence since his rebirth, he responded. "We are at war," he said, and his voice carried the weight of every conflict he had ever witnessed, every sacrifice he had ever made, every death he had ever caused in service to victory. Real war, the kind of war where hesitation gets people killed by the billions, the kind of war where mercy becomes a luxury that costs more lives than cruelty ever could. You still do not understand what that means. Superman's response was immediate and absolute. He rejected the framing entirely. There are always lines, he insisted. There must always be limits. Without them, we become the very thing we fight against. But Captain Atom was ready for this argument. He had been preparing for it, in some ways, for years. "You were losing, Clark," he said, and the use of Superman's human name carried deliberate weight. Lex Luthor and the Joker were ahead. The forces of darkness were winning. And you were still worried about civilian casualties, still holding back because you could not bear to fight without your precious restraints. Batman told you to wake up, to understand that this tournament plays by different rules. You did not listen. I did. The silence that followed stretched between them like a wound. And then Superman spoke, his voice quiet, but carrying the force of conviction that had made him a symbol of hope across 1,000 worlds. "I would rather lose as myself than win as something I cannot recognize." Captain Atom smiled, and there was something terrible in that expression. "Then you will lose," he said. "And when Darkseid reduces your precious Earth to ash, remember that you had a chance to stop him. Remember that you chose your principles over your planet." The tournament's third round was announced before their confrontation could escalate further. The heart of Apocalypse, that mysterious entity orchestrating this cosmic competition, demanded their attention with a voice that resonated through dimensions. The rules were simple and brutal. Hand-to-hand combat. No powers. 2 out of 3 rounds. No mercy. And the arena would be Metropolis itself, as reality warped around them, reshaping itself into the familiar skyline of Superman's adopted city. Both combatants felt the weight of what was being demanded. This was not merely a fight. This was a statement, a demonstration of philosophy made manifest through violence. Superman scanned the cityscape with eyes that could see through dimensions. The buildings looked correct, the streets arranged in familiar patterns. But something was wrong. Something was missing. The city had the appearance of Metropolis without its soul. "Something is wrong," he whispered, more to himself than to his opponent. "It sounds like Metropolis, but it feels empty." Captain Atom's response was immediate and knowing. "That is precisely the point. The heart is testing you, making you question whether these buildings contain real people, making you hesitate." He had recognized the trap the moment the arena formed. Superman would pull his punches if he even suspected civilians might be nearby. That hesitation would create openings. Those openings would determine the outcome. In a fight between beings of their caliber, doubt was more deadly than any weapon. Superman tried once more to find common ground. He spoke of their shared history, of battles fought side by side, of the possibility that they could find another way forward. His voice carried genuine hope that the man he had once called friend might still exist, somewhere beneath the cold calculations of the soldier. But Captain Atom had already committed himself to a path that allowed for no reconciliation. "You still do not understand," he said, and his voice carried something approaching pity. "I am not here to prove anything. Not to you, not to the audience, not to myself. I am here to win. Because winning is the only thing that matters when the alternative is extinction." The first blow came without warning. Captain Atom's fist connected with Superman's jaw with force sufficient to level buildings. The man of steel flew backward through a skyscraper, glass and steel shattering around him as he carved a path through floors of structure. Even without his quantum abilities, Captain Atom possessed physical strength honed through decades of combat. Every movement was efficient, every strike calculated to achieve maximum damage. Superman emerged from the rubble with blood on his lip and shock in his eyes. "What are you doing?" he gasped. If these buildings contain real people, Captain Atom cut him off mid-sentence. They do not. Probably. Maybe. Does it matter? To him, genuinely, it did not. Because he had come to believe that ends justified everything. That the suffering of individuals, however tragic, weighed nothing against the survival of existence itself. That the hard choices others refused to make fell upon the shoulders of those strong enough to bear them. Superman moved. Fast. Not because he wanted to win. Because he had to stop this before it consumed everything. He struck. Booster blocked. The explosion lit up galaxies. But this time, Superman didn't hold back. He didn't need future forms. He didn't need sun-forged armor. He needed clarity. And that was stronger than any mutation the Omega Force could create. The collision of their powers sent shockwaves rippling through dimensions that had never known disturbance. Reality itself groaned under the weight of their conflict, timelines fracturing and reforming with each exchange of blows. The watchtower, already damaged beyond repair, began its final descent toward the planet below, trailing fire and debris like a dying comet. Superman pressed forward, his fists connecting with Booster's corrupted form again and again. Each strike was not merely physical, but philosophical, a rejection of everything the Omega Force represented. He was not fighting to destroy his former ally. He was fighting to remind the universe that corruption could be resisted, that darkness could be pushed back, that hope was not merely a pleasant fiction, but a force as real and powerful as any cosmic energy. Booster Gold, or the Thing wearing his face, staggered backward under the assault. The Omega fire in his eyes flickered with something that might have been confusion. He had expected Superman to hesitate, to hold back, to be crippled by his famous moral restraints. Instead, he faced a warrior who had finally understood that true strength lay not in the absence of limits, but in knowing which limits mattered and which were merely fear wearing the mask of principle. "You are still holding back," Booster snarled, his voice echoing with Darkseid's ancient malice. "I can feel it. You could hit harder. You could end this instantly." Superman's response came between strikes, each word punctuated by another blow. "I am not holding back. I am choosing precisely how much force to use. There is a difference." The distinction was everything. Captain Atom had abandoned all restraint, believing that victory justified any method. Booster, corrupted by Omega energy, had surrendered his will entirely to power beyond his comprehension. But Superman had found a third path, one that acknowledged the necessity of force while refusing to let that necessity define him. He was fighting at full capacity. He was simply choosing to direct that capacity toward liberation rather than destruction. "You are not the heart of anything," Superman said, his voice carrying across dimensions with absolute conviction. "You are just another man who forgot who he was." The words struck deeper than any physical blow could have. Somewhere beneath the layers of Omega corruption, the real Booster Gold heard them. The man who had traveled through time seeking glory, who had stumbled into heroism almost by accident, who had grown beyond his shallow origins to become something genuinely noble. That man was still present, buried, screaming, fighting to reclaim his own soul. Superman saw the flicker of recognition in those burning eyes and pressed his advantage. "Michael," he said, using Booster's real name for the first time, "you came here to be a hero. Remember that. Remember why you started." The Omega fire surged, trying to drown out the words, trying to reassert its control. But seeds of doubt had been planted. Cracks had formed in the possession's foundation. Booster's form shuddered, caught between two competing wills. "I am beyond such petty concerns," he declared, but his voice wavered. "I am Darkseid now. I am the end of all hope." "No," Superman replied. "You are Booster Gold. And Booster Gold never gives up. He extended his hand, not in a fist, but open, offering, for a moment that stretched into eternity. The universe held its breath. And then, slowly, painfully, Booster Gold reached back. The Omega Fire screamed as it was rejected. The corruption that had seemed so absolute, so permanent, began to unravel. It was not a gentle process. Booster convulsed as the dark energy was torn from his being, his body racked with agony that transcended physical sensation. But he did not stop reaching. Their hands clasped, and Superman pulled with all his strength, not against Booster's body, but against the darkness that had claimed his soul. It was a tug of war fought across spiritual dimensions, a battle of wills that made their previous physical conflict seem like children's play. The Omega Force did not surrender easily. It had invested too much in this vessel, had come too close to achieving its goals. It threw everything it had into maintaining its hold, summoning visions of power and glory, whispering promises of eternal dominion. But Booster Gold had remembered who he was. And who he was, at his core, was a man who wanted to matter, who wanted to be remembered, who wanted desperately to be one of the good guys. The Omega Force could offer power beyond imagination. What it could not offer was the simple satisfaction of being a hero. With a final, wrenching effort, Booster tore himself free. The explosion of released energy could be seen from neighboring galaxies. The Omega Fire erupted upward in a pillar of darkness and flame, seeking another host, finding none, and finally dissipating into the void between dimensions. The corruption that had threatened to consume everything simply ceased to exist. Booster Gold collapsed, his body smoking, his costume in ruins. But his eyes, when they opened, were his own. Did I, he gasped, struggling to form words through damaged vocal cords. Did I hurt anyone? Superman knelt beside him, one hand on his shoulder. Nothing that cannot be healed, he said. Welcome back. Far below, in the shattered remnants of the arena where the tournament had played out its bloody drama, Captain Atom witnessed the confrontation's conclusion. He had clawed his way back from the temporal exile the heart had imposed, had fought through layers of his own fractured timeline to return to the present moment. He had intended to resume his quest for ultimate power. Instead, he watched Superman defeat the avatar of Darkseid through an extended hand and an appeal to buried heroism. It should not have worked. Every tactical calculation, every strategic assessment, every cold logical analysis said that such an approach was doomed to failure. You did not defeat cosmic corruption through friendship and gentle words. You crushed it with overwhelming force, or you perished in the attempt. And yet Superman stood victorious, having won not through superior firepower, but through superior understanding of what truly motivated the human heart. Nathaniel Atom felt something shift inside him, something that had been locked away since his rebirth in nuclear fire, something he had deliberately suppressed because feeling it made the hard choices harder. He felt doubt, not doubt in his abilities or his tactical assessments, doubt in his fundamental assumptions about what victory required. The heart of Apocalypse pulsed one final time, its voice echoing across the diminished battlefield. Tournament concludes. Champion emerges. Choice must be made. Superman turned from Booster's recovering form to face the heart directly. Around him, the surviving participants gathered. Gorilla Grodd, his schemes forgotten in the face of what he had witnessed. World Forger, ancient being humbled by the display of moral strength. Time Trapper, whose manipulations had brought them to this moment, now uncertain of his own purposes. And Captain Atom, standing apart, watching with eyes that had finally begun to question their own certainty. The heart's final temptation was more subtle than any that had come before. It did not offer power or dominion. It offered peace. You have proven yourself worthy, it said to Superman. You alone possess the strength and the wisdom to reshape existence, to eliminate suffering, to create paradise. Visions cascaded through Superman's mind. He saw a universe without Darkseid, without war, without the endless cycle of violence that had defined so much of existence. He saw Earth protected forever, Krypton restored, every tragedy that had ever wounded him undone and rewritten. All he had to do was accept the heart's power. All he had to do was become a god. For a long moment, he considered it. He was so tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of losing people he loved. Tired of watching the universe repeat the same mistakes generation after generation. Would it really be so wrong to use this power for good? To finally, permanently make things better? But then he remembered Captain Atom's words. Wars are not won by hesitation. They are won by sacrifices. By doing what the other guy will not. And he understood, with crystalline clarity, what accepting the heart's offer would truly mean. It would mean becoming the other guy. The one who made the hard choices that no one else would make. The one who sacrificed the freedom of others on the altar of his own vision of what was right. It would mean becoming, in every way that mattered, exactly what he had spent his entire life fighting against. This is not mine to decide, Superman said, and his voice carried the weight of absolute conviction. The heart pulsed with what might have been confusion. You reject ultimate power? You reject the ability to create paradise? I reject the assumption that paradise can be created by any single being, no matter how powerful or well-intentioned. I reject the idea that the answer to suffering is control rather than compassion. I reject everything you represent. He stepped forward, placing his hand upon the heart's surface. You were designed to forge a weapon, he said, a champion capable of defeating Darkseid. But the weapon you created was not power. It was understanding. Understanding that true strength comes not from the ability to impose your will on others, but from the wisdom to know when not to. The heart trembled beneath his touch. What are you doing? I am making a choice. Not the choice you expected. Not the choice that serves your purposes. A choice that is entirely my own. Light erupted from the point of contact. Not the angry red of Omega energy or the cold blue of quantum manipulation. Pure, clean, golden light that carried the warmth of a yellow sun and the hope of a better tomorrow. The heart of apocalypse, that ancient engine of cosmic conflict, began to transform. I am not destroying you, Superman said. I am changing your purpose. You were built to create warriors. From now on, you will create healers, peak makers, those who bridge divides rather than widening them. The transformation rippled outward, rewriting the fundamental nature of the artifact. The fire pits that had fueled its power flickered and died, replaced by gentle radiance. The dark architecture of the tournament arena dissolved, reformed, became something new. A sanctuary, a place of refuge for those wounded by cosmic conflicts. A beacon calling to all who sought redemption rather than domination. Captain Atom watched the transformation with something approaching awe. This was power beyond anything he had imagined. Not the power to destroy or control, but the power to fundamentally alter the nature of existence through sheer force of will and moral clarity. And Superman had wielded it not to elevate himself, but to create something that would benefit others long after he was gone. Nathaniel Atom felt the last of his certainties crumble. He had spent so long believing that strength meant the ability to make hard choices, to sacrifice what others would not, to bear the weight of decisions that lesser beings could not handle. He had convinced himself that his willingness to cross lines was what made him necessary. But Superman had just demonstrated a different kind of strength entirely. The strength to hold onto principles, even when abandoning them would have been easier. The strength to trust in others, rather than trying to control everything himself. The strength to admit that he did not have all the answers. It was, Captain Atom realized, the kind of strength he had once possessed. Before Project Atom, before the explosion that had remade him, before he had convinced himself that his humanity was a weakness to be overcome rather than a gift to be cherished. The sanctuary completed its formation, and Superman turned to face the assembled witnesses. The tournament is over, he said. There will be no champion of destruction, no weapon forged to fight Darkseid through matching his brutality. Grodd stepped forward, his massive form trembling with barely contained frustration. Then, how do we defeat him? How do we stop the greatest evil the universe has ever known? Superman smiled, and there was something ancient and wise in that expression. The same way we stop any evil, together, not through a single all-powerful champion, but through the combined strength of everyone who chooses to stand against darkness. Darkseid wants us to believe that power is the only thing that matters. The tournament was designed to reinforce that belief, but we have proven it wrong. He looked at each of them in turn. Grodd, whose schemes had led him to this moment of revelation. World Forger, whose cosmic perspective had been expanded by witnessing mortal courage. Time Trapper, whose manipulations had ultimately served purposes beyond his understanding. And finally, Captain Atom. Their eyes met, and a universe of unspoken communication passed between them. Superman saw the doubt that had finally penetrated Nathaniel's armor of certainty. Nathaniel saw the forgiveness that Superman offered without reservation. "You were right about some things," Superman said. "We were holding back. We were so afraid of becoming what we fought against that we sometimes failed to fight at all. But the answer was never to abandon our principles. It was to find new ways to apply them." Captain Atom was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotions he had suppressed for years. "I killed your cousin," he said. "I killed you. I was ready to kill everyone who stood between me and what I wanted. Yes. And you forgive me?" Superman shook his head. "Forgiveness is not mine to give. What you did to others. To Supergirl. To the universe you were willing to sacrifice. To yourself. Only they can forgive you. Only you can forgive yourself." He placed a hand on Nathaniel's shoulder. "What I can offer is a chance. A chance to become something other than what you have been. A chance to use your power for healing rather than destruction. A chance to remember why you became a hero in the first place." Captain Atom looked at the hand on his shoulder. Such a simple gesture. Such an ordinary human connection. And yet it carried more weight than all the quantum energy in his body. "I do not know if I can change," he admitted. "I have been a weapon for so long. I am not sure I remember how to be anything else. None of us know what we can become until we try. That is the nature of hope. It believes in possibilities that logic says are impossible." The sanctuary pulsed with gentle light, as if responding to their conversation. Around them, the other witnesses were already beginning to disperse, each carrying with them the seeds of transformation that this day had planted. Booster Gold, recovered enough to stand, limped over to join them. His costume was ruined, his body battered, but his eyes held a clarity they had lacked for months. "So," he said, his voice hoarse but carrying traces of his old humor, "what happens now? Do we just go back to normal? Pretend none of this happened?" Superman considered the question. "We cannot pretend," he said. "What happened here changed us, changed the universe. The question is what we do with that change." He looked out at the sanctuary, at the transformed heart of Apocalypse, at the future that now stretched before them undefined and full of possibility. "Darkseid is still out there," he continued. "Other threats still exist. The work of heroes is never truly finished. But perhaps we can do that work differently now. Perhaps we can find ways to fight that do not require us to become the darkness we oppose." Captain Atom stepped forward, his quantum aura flickering with uncertainty he had never allowed himself to feel before. "I want to try," he said. "I do not know if I can succeed. I do not know if I deserve the chance, but I want to try." Superman smiled. "That is all any of us can do." The sanctuary's light intensified, reaching out across dimensions to touch wounded places throughout the multiverse. It would take time for the healing to spread, time for the changes begun here to take root and grow, time for beings who had known only conflict to learn new ways of being. But the journey had begun, and somewhere far away on a small planet orbiting a yellow sun, Lois Lane looked up at the sky and felt something shift. Something that told her, without words, that Clark was coming home, that he had won not through force but through faith, that the universe was, against all odds, a little bit brighter than it had been. She smiled and went to put on the coffee. He would be hungry when he arrived. He always was. The end. Or maybe, as Superman would say, the beginning. Because hope does not end. It transforms. It grows. It finds new expressions in every generation, every universe, every heart that chooses to believe that tomorrow can be better than today. That is the lesson the tournament taught, though it was never meant to teach anything of the kind. That is the victory Superman won, though victory was never truly the point. And that is the gift he gave to Captain Atom, to Booster Gold, to everyone who witnessed what happened when one man refused to abandon his principles, even when the universe itself demanded otherwise. Not power, not dominion, something far more precious, the courage to hope.